despite what was read about me, I started in the church. I was 15, 16 years old, and I learned in the church.
Come on.
The church is where it all started. Ohio State and all those other places that I've gone wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the church.
Come on.
Speak it.
And so, because I had the momentum of the church behind me,
Yes.
then I understood that it was just a matter of everybody else understanding
Yes, sir.
that I understand.
Yes, sir. They
All
get
right.
That there's something greater going on.
it. It is.
And so you in a good place.
Thank you, Lord.
You in the church.
Thank you, Lord.
A lot of folks are not in the church and need to be. They don't go because they don't feel that they belong, or they don't go because something happened to them. But you in the right place at the right time.
Come on now.
And God can bless you
Yes, sir.
from the church. And you carry the church with you wherever you go. And the belief and the faith will never leave you,
Come on now. Come on.
regardless of what you find yourself up against. To underscore the point, I remember when I was working in pharmaceuticals at Sepulchre, there was a lady who opened the door, and she had this English accent, and she said, "Welcome to Sepulchre, Dr. Hensley." And I was like, "Is that me?" And I sat in a room with people who went to Harvard and Yale, and they went to all of these fine schools, and they said that they wanted us to think of something that was positive, that we remembered and that we learned long ago. And they were going to give us 5 minutes to get ourselves together. It was a room of about 20, and I was thinking about what that would be. And there was a gentleman that got up, and he was from Brown University, and he spoke eloquently. And there was some other lady who gotten up, and she went to Bryn Mawr, and I went to the lowly Ohio State University, a public land grant school. And so what I thought about was when I was in the church and in the basement at Macedonia, there was a lady by the name of Miss Bernice Lewis, who was a Sunday school teacher. And she was always encouraging me as a child. And I remember one of the things that I sat and said, and she would tap her foot, and she would purse her lips, and she would look, and she'd just smile. And I said to them there what I learned at Macedonia. And that was, if it follows your lot to be a street sweeper, go on out and sweep streets like Michelangelo carved marble.
Come on.
Sweep streets like Raphael painted pictures.
Say it.
Sweep streets like Beethoven composed music and like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth would have to pause and say, "Here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well."
Come on.
If you can't be a pine on the top of the hill, be a scrub in the valley.
That's right. Come on.
If you can't be a highway, be a trail.
Yes, sir.
If you can't be the sun, be a star.
Yes, sir.
For it isn't by size that you win or you fail.
That's right.
Be the best at whatever you do.
Come on now.
They asked me where did I learn it. I said from Macedonia Baptist Church.
Amen.
And so I say that to you because the church, this church, and you being here is valuable,
Yes, sir.
invaluable,
Yes, sir.
to where God has planned for you to go.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Learn all that you can from the lips and the hands of people that care about you.
Okay.
And it will travel with you a long way. Amen?
Amen. Come on.
And that's what you want.
Yes.
As I pondered on what to say, I always try to listen to what God would have me to know that he would want me to say versus me telling God, this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
You know, it's easy for us to tell God what we're going to do.
Yeah.
That's then shortly we fall flat on our face. But
Yes, sir.
nonetheless,
Yes, sir.
I thought about the text this morning. I listened to the prayers, and I considered all of what comes to mind, and it fit just nicely to talk on the subject when God heals.
Okay.
When God heals. And that's where I want you to think about when God heals. When. And I submit to you that God still heals. It's not some fantasy that you see on TV. It's not some TV preacher that said that suddenly he's healed. God still heals. It's not always on CNN as breaking news.
Yes, sir.
It's not always in the dispatch. Might not even see it on YouTube, but God still heals.
Say it now. Say it.
When God heals.
We need.
In our text this morning, somewhere in Mark, the 3rd chapter, it says to us, he entered again into the synagogue, and there was a man which had a withered hand. And they watched him whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. He saith unto the man which had the withered hand, stand forth. And he saith unto them, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days, or to do evil, to save life or to kill? But they held their peace. And when he had looked round about on them with anger, being grieved for the hardness of their hearts, saith to the man, stretch forth thine hand. When God heals. You see, the man with a withered hand had a condition. All of us, if we live long enough, will have a condition.
Yes, we do.
See?
Got it.
You might not know that you have a condition. But the man had a condition.
All right.
Now, a condition is something different than a common cold or symptom. You see, if you get a cold, you get chicken noodle soup and some crackers and some 7-Up, and you get some rest, and in 3, 4, 5 days, better.
Right.
But a condition is something you're known for.
That's right.
It's attached to who you are. Condition. We don't know the name of the man, but we know he had a withered hand.
Right. Right.
And that withered hand was something that bothered him. We don't know why he came to the temple on that day. Maybe he came because he heard Jesus was there. Not a bad reason.
Right.
He had a withered hand. You know, if somebody says that their hand hurt, it don't sound like your back hurt.
All right.
Right. Right.
But a hand is mighty important.
Oh,
Yes, sir, it is.
Yes, yes.
You see, if you got something wrong with your hand, you recognize real fast that you need both hands. And you can't quite get the one hand to work like it's supposed to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you dealing with it.
Right. Right.
Now, some people have arthritis in their hand. Some people have gout in their hand.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Some people have a carpal tunnel in their wrist
Yeah.
that affects their hand.
Right.
Some people got something wrong with the nerve that bothers the hand, and for whatever reason, a hand is important.
Yes.
It don't sound like it's as important as a back, but
Come on.
you just try working with one hand for
Yeah.
Right.
one day, and you see how important both
Right.
hands are.
Right.
The man came to Jesus with a withered hand,
Condition.
and so it was mighty important to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody knew how long that man had been dealing with that withered hand. They didn't know what kind of pain he had.
That's
Right.
right.
They didn't know how it kept him up at night. How he would have sleepless nights because that hand would throb and bother him. We don't know him by name, but we know him by condition.
Right. Right.
Some people have a condition and they walk with a limp.
That's right.
See.
Some people have a condition and they act crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot.
People got conditions
Right.
That's right.
that they're dealing with all the time.
That's right.
They try to hide it, so don't nobody see. They put their hand in their pocket, so don't nobody see it's withered.
Right.
Quit it. Quit it.
Come on. Come on now.
They just try to walk at an angle where the one hand you could see normally, the other hand you assume is normal. You know, that's how people behave. They hide what's withered
That's right. That's right.
because they want to act as if they're normal, but they're not.
That's right. That's right.
Man comes on a Sunday of all days, where the Pharisees and the Sadducees who protect the Mosaic law are standing in the temple.
Say it.
And he needs to get his hand touched by Jesus.
Okay.
Now, you know, maybe the man with the withered hand came because Jesus' reputation preceded him.
Right, right,
Maybe he heard that Jesus turned water into wine.
right.
Or that he cast demons out in the cemetery of the Gadarenes and put them in the pigs, and the pigs jumped off the cliff.
Okay, all right.
Maybe he had heard that not too long ago there was a man that was lowered with a condition who couldn't move from the roof, and they had to make room for him, and he told him to pick up thy bed and walk. Maybe Jesus's reputation was in front of him, and he had heard that Lazarus had died, and that he came back to life. Or he heard Jairus' daughter died. But nonetheless, he thought he had a chance if he could get in front of Jesus because he had a condition.
Come on now.
And he wasn't crawling on the ground to touch the hem of his robe. He needed to face Jesus. And he needed to face the others on a Sunday. Now, you see, the problem with it being on a Sunday is the Sabbath day. You're supposed to keep it holy and not do nothing with it.
Okay.
Supposed to rest on the Sabbath day. You see, the people who are upholding the law always want to be duty bound to make sure that everybody else holds up the law. But now, if you put it in perspective, if you're in an ambulance and it goes left to center, and it runs through the red light,
Okay.
and you hear the tires screech on the ground as it turns the corner, and it rolls up on a sidewalk, and then it slams its brakes and stops. The one who drove the ambulance broke the law.
Come on.
But because of the urgency of trying to get to where they need to go, there has to be an exception to the law.
Yeah.
You see, because if he didn't rush and make shortcuts and run through the red light, then he'd be too late.
Okay.
So those that believed in holding up the law had an issue, and they wanted to see what Jesus would do. What would he do
Okay.
on a Sabbath day?
Uh-oh.
Would he
Uh-oh.
heal this man with a withered hand
Uh-oh.
in front of us? Because then he's guilty.
Right.
You see, even back then they had gotcha politics.
That's right.
And so they were watching closely, but the man with the withered hand didn't care what company he kept.
Right.
All he cared was that he was in the right company.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
All he cared was that he was in front of the Christ.
Right.
That's right.
All he wanted him to do was for Jesus to do his thing.
Come on.
Whatever his thing was, because everybody else doing his thing, he still have a withered hand.
Right.
You hit the pause button for a moment and think back of how God always deals with conditions.
Condition.
We find ourselves looking at 2 Kings, looking at someone who has an incurable disease, looking at a great man named Naaman, a man's man. He was to Syria what Achilles was to the Greeks.
Yes, sir.
Wherever he was on the battlefield, his shadow loomed, and you wanted to make sure you were on the right side. He was a warrior and a champion.
Okay.
Syrian captain by the name of Naaman,
Name it.
wore his armor proudly, who rode on one of them horses that
Come on.
you know had an arched back and it trot like it's somebody. Had a chariot that was bronze, and he commanded men, and they respected him because he was a winner. But as the story goes, Naaman had a condition
Okay.
that the armor hid and others didn't see.
Come on.
And you see, if you don't deal with a condition long enough, it begins to cause you to slow just a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It causes the reflex to just kind of
Right.
be just a touch
Come on.
slow.
Leprosy.
And Naaman didn't want everybody to know his condition, because if you got this condition, then you on quarantine. You can't nobody come around you because don't nobody else want to get that condition.
Yes, sir.
Naaman couldn't fix that. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't cause Naaman not to have leprosy again.
Okay.
he was having to deal with the fact and the reality that he had in his time an incurable disease. Something he wanted no one to know about. But when he came home and he took off his armor, when he put his shield up against the wall and laid his sword down,
Okay.
when he looked in the mirror, he saw that he had a wretchedness to him.
Wow.
That he wasn't getting any better.
Okay.
He had heard there was a prophet in Samaria, but Samaria was on over in Israel, and he was an enemy of Israel. And he wasn't trying necessarily to go there, but he heard that there was a prophet in Samaria, and that prophet's name was Elisha.
Okay. Okay.
On his military conquest, he brings a little girl, little Israeli girl home, and she says, you know, with little kids, what comes up comes out.
Right.
And she said, if my Lord would just go see the prophet, he'd be healed.
Come on now.
As only a child could say.
Yes.
Right? If an adult said it, it's a problem.
Right,
But
right.
the child could say it. And,
Right.
and so he hears this, and it circles around in his head, and it goes throughout, and he wonders what he should do. And he goes to the king, and he says to the king if he could excuse him so that he could have the king of Israel heal him. King says, not only that, I'll send a messenger ahead in order to make sure he knows that you're coming. And I'll make sure that you have so many pieces of gold and silver,
Okay.
10 changes of clothes, and you take your entourage with you, and I wish you well.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so Naaman puts on his helmet, and he straps the laces of his sandals up by his knee,
Okay.
and he gets on his horse. And he has a chariot, and he has behind him a spear, and he has a small entourage because of his status. And he goes and heads towards Samaria, which requires that he goes through enemy territory in order for him to get to the prophet.
Wow.
You see,
Wow.
Naaman knew that Naaman killed many of an Israelite.
Yes, sir.
And he had to take a risk and be exposed
Wow.
in order to get to where he was going to get to the king, for the king to heal him.
Okay.
Now, if you think about it, Naaman didn't believe like
Prophet.
the prophet believed. Naaman's asking the king of Syria if he can go see the king of Israel to heal him, but the king of Israel can't heal Naaman. That's the wrong one.
Right. Come on.
But at least he's going in the right direction.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
You know, sometimes we can be headed towards the wrong person, but at least if we go in the right direction, we gonna get
Right.
there.
Right.
It might take a minute, but we gonna finally get there because we going in the right direction. Naaman's going in the right direction, and he moves cautiously and slowly, and he hits enemy territory, and surely, I'm sure they're looking at him and wondering about him and what he's up to, but they see that he's moving in a way that's not warlike. He's moving carefully and watching, and he has a few, but not enough for him to not be encircled. But the letter gets to the king from the messenger ahead of time. Elisha happens to be with the king, and he reads the note, and he rips it up, and he says, what manner of war is he trying to fight with me? I can't heal him. Elisha says, have him come see me when he gets here. Don't worry about that. The king was upset. I don't know if you've ever been at a impasse with somebody that you've argued with for quite some time, and you've fought over some things, and they give you an olive branch and you think it's poison ivy.
See?
The king thought that the letter was poison ivy, and he thought there was some trick to it.
Okay.
But on this day, it wasn't. It was an olive branch. You know, sometimes people can give us an olive branch and we treat it as if it's poison,
Right.
because what we see twists and mars the goodness of what comes to us. But yet we want good things.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so what happens is the prophet goes on out to the back 40, because he don't live in town, he live out the cut. And he goes and sits there. Naaman comes through with his horses and his men. And he has this leather strap and this finery that lets you know he's somebody. And he rolls into Israel's king, and he pulls the reins back and steps down from the chariot. And he walks up the stone steps, and the guards pull the wooden doors open, and you could hear the click of his heels on the marble floor, walking towards the king, and his helmet's off just under his arm. And he looks to the king, and he asks the king, can he heal him?
Wow. Wow.
The king says, go see the prophet Elisha. So Naaman takes a deep breath, and he pivots, and he goes the other direction and walks away from the king's presence and through the wooden doors, down the steps. He launches and gets in his chariot, and he rides herd because he needs to get this thing done.
You're right.
Now you got to remember, Naaman got a temper. Right? And so Naaman been riding for a while. He cashed in political capital. He went through the enemy's territory. He went and spoke to the king. Now he got to go another 15 miles to get to the right person.
All right.
Okay.
And so Naaman rides hard.
Yes, sir.
And you can hear the baritone of the horse's hooves and heavy breathing. And when you look over through the over the hill and through the humble window of the prophet, they see this dust coming up, head their way. The little prophet says, the servant to the prophet says, my lord, we got some company coming. And the prophet says, don't worry, don't worry. And you hear the hooves and the determination and the power and the right now or urgency of Naaman coming, who doesn't believe like the prophet believed. Pulls up on the reins, and all this dust comes up, and the front hooves of the horses raise and thump down like somebody's
Come
head.
on. Come on.